When I went to that Bluegrass festival, I heard it live.
Yeah.
And I seen those guys in their suits with their hats, gold-plated old Gibson Master Tone banjos, stepping up to a mic. It was gangster, dude. Like, they walked through the crowd like, you know what I mean? They were tall, and they carried these banjo cases, and they just looked so good. And then they get up on stage, and I'm hearing twin fiddle, you know, or banjo, like I said, stepping up into a 57, coming through a PA, 3-part harmonies, ripping, you know, and it's just like, I was floored.
Right.
I mean, it was like the moment when I was a little kid when I saw the fire truck or the policeman or the whatever. It was like, I want to be a policeman, or I want to be like, no, I want to fucking do that. Like, look at, it was just, they were so cool to me, you know what I mean? And I remember probably shortly after that, I was in kindergarten and I made this little, we were making a book, like, you know, this is my friend, and I weigh 43 pounds this year, and whatever, and when I grow up, I want to be and it was a blank line, and I drew a picture of a guy with a banjo, you know. I want to be a bluegrass player when I grow up. It's always been the shit to me, man.
So did you just play guitar all the time when you were a kid then? You were just obsessed immediately?
Pretty much. You know, there was a lot of picking, like I said, around my house. There was this campground that was owned by a dear friend of ours. His name was Brad Lasko, and he was a banjo player. He was my dad's, like, best friend.
Okay.
So a lot of times it was me and my dad and Brad. Sometimes there'd be a bass player or somebody else that would come join, but the three of us was the main. We could sit there and play all night, you know, and him and Brad would sing songs. I didn't sing a lot. Like I said, I played rhythm for the first several years until I was a teenager, really.
Right.
Which was really formative for me, and I got to listen a bunch.
Yeah.
I got to listen to those melodies, and I got to listen to the vocal harmonies, because I was just playing rhythm, but what I'm really doing is listening to just like on Beaumont Rag.
Yeah.
So when I was little, I used to think I was like magic or something. I could just tell what chord was coming next. I didn't know there was the use of, you know, seventh chords and stuff like that.
Yeah.
You know, I wouldn't know the song, and I'd just be like, oh, I think there's a C chord coming up next, and I'd hit it, and wow, how did I know that, you know? And I used to think I was the shit or something, you know, but yeah, my dad would do something like that, and my ear would lead me to the next chord.
Yeah.
And I was like, how did I know, you know? So yeah, I learned just by ear and by picking and just hearing the songs, and bluegrass harmony, you know, like vocal harmony, was a thing that kind of seeped into my heart and soul early on, hearing my dad and Brad sing those songs. And I noticed how my dad would stay here sometimes and Brad would be up. Sometimes they'd both go up. Sometimes only one person would move.
They wouldn't do straight thirds. They'd sometimes have fourths and things like that where they follow the chords.
Yeah,
like that.
Just the lonesome sound of bluegrass,
Yeah.
you know, like the harmonies, you know. And so that kind of seeped into my ears, where I can hear somebody sing like a lead vocal and I just hear the tenor part and the baritone. Baritone's a little harder to find sometimes. And sometimes if the chords are moving around a lot, it's a little harder. But for the most part, it's like I can just hear the harmony, you know, and I have been able to since I was a little kid, kind of just knowing where, okay, well, if you're singing here and I'm on tenor, this is my part.
I'd like to take a second to talk to you about this channel. This is actually Rick Beato 2. I've had it since the beginning of my main channel, and many of you are not subscribed. As a matter of fact, 87% of the people that watch this channel regularly are not subscribed. So I encourage you to hit the subscribe button on this channel and on my main channel. This will help me get even more of my dream guests and help continue to grow both channels. Thank you.
Being from Michigan, people are like, well, it's Michigan, bluegrass in Michigan?
It spreads, for one thing. It's a bug and it can bite you. And then you go give it to someone else. And also, you know, a place like Michigan, there was a lot of folks that moved up there from Kentucky and Tennessee and stuff to go work, you know, back in the day at them factories and stuff.
Yeah.
And then they stayed there and they had, their families was there and they brought their songs with them. You know, so yeah, I mean, there's a lot of bluegrass in the Rust Belt.
When you're talking about being 5 years old, you're born in '92, so you're talking about late '90s or so, basically,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, I think 97 or something would have been around the time of that Bluegrass Festival.
So when you're telling me this, in my mind, I'm thinking like this is the 1970s, because I'm looking at it from my perspective. Or I was in '67, I was 5 years old.
It may
you know?
as well have been being raised by my parents.
Right.
You know what I mean? And truly, it was like, you know, my dad drove a 72 old truck you know, a C10,
Yeah.
you know, and we were always listening. I was raised on a lot of older music, you know. Besides Doc Watson and stuff like that, you know, it was Hendrix and the Beatles and, you know, Black Sabbath, and Johnny Winter was a big one around my house. That's one of our dudes. You
And
know?
how would you get informed by that music? Did you have did your dad have a record collection?
Yeah.
Your mom or something?
Yeah, my dad's records. I remember, like, specifically times where he sat me down. He would call me from across the house. Boomer, get in here, you know? I'm thinking, oh shit, you know, what did I do? And I go in his room and he's like, sit down. Okay, shuts the door. Oh, fuck. I'm about to get a whipping. This is David Grisman. You need to know this.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And he puts on Doc and Dog, or he did the same thing. I was 7 years old when he showed me Black Sabbath. The first record, the first song, on his big stereo system, fucking cranked. And, you know, it starts with the storm and the bells and...
Oh, yeah.
You know? What is this that stands before me? And, God, scared the living shit out of me, man. It traumatized me. I mean, that music, because I could see Satan, you know, when I heard that shit in my little imaginative mind.
Right.
But he was also like, you know, he was like, check it out, man. Like, you gotta listen, like, you know, the riffs and shit. He was trying to show me. But he showed me King Crimson. He would show me, like, he would just be in his room, like, oh, listening to some shit, geeking out, and just want to share it with somebody. And I was his dude that he did that with, man. And you know, he would sit me down and specifically show me things.